General Hospital spoilers for the next 2 weeks, September 8th to September 19th, state that Britt Westbourne will return to Port Charles, causing Lulu Spencer and Dante Falconeri to freak out. Jocelyn Jacks and S. Vaughn will also reveal a fresh mystery. So this is what GH fans should look forward to. Cody Bell's image with Molly Lansing Davis will improve during the week of September 8th to 12th, as he appears to be keeping Scout Quartermain secure at the Quartermain stables. When Scout is no longer missing, she can return home with her new custodial guardian. Willow Tate, at least while Drew Kane is out of commission, will take Scout back to Elizabeth Baldwin's house. Things will become wild at the Five Poppies Resort, but Britt, Jason Morgan, Jocelyn and Vaughn will all make it home safely. Of course, Britt's return to Port Charles will cause quite a stir. Lulu and Dante will be reeling after Britt's return, so they'll need to fill Rocco Falconeri's spot quickly. Liesl Albrecht will finally meet Britt, so expect an emotional reunion full with questions. Michael Corinthos will seek Curtis' assistance in hunting down Jacinda the escort. Michael believes Jacinda is his greatest chance at an alibi, so he will go to any length to find her. Nina Reeves will also have a compelling idea to consider, so we'll see if it includes dealing with Jacinda or another catastrophe. When it comes to the inquiry into Drew's shooting, Harrison Chase will utilize his knowledge to make an assessment on Willow. Can Chase truly put his feelings for Willow aside and accomplish his job here? Dante Falconeri will also have to investigate Michael, which will be a task for him. Jocelyn and Vaughn will be in unfamiliar terrain from September 15th to 19th. Vaughn and Jocelyn's horrific assignment will come to an end, but their affections for each other will endure. Jack Brennan would not approve. Therefore it appears that Jocelyn will sneak about with Vaughn and enjoy their romance behind Brennan's back. Britt will have to deal with the blowback from her homecoming. Britt will eventually reconnect with Rocco Falconeri, so he'll be delighted to meet the lady who gave birth to him, even if she's not his biological mother. Nathan West's return is also quickly approaching, so GH writers will continue to lay the groundwork for that surprise. Back with Jason, he'll have to determine how long he's willing to keep Jocelyn's WSB status hidden from Carly Spencer, especially since she's falling more in love with Brennan every day. According to General Hospital spoilers, Drew may also be exposed to another sneak attack, so keep an eye out for updates on whether his GH stint becomes dangerous. CDL will have more great General Hospital spoilers, updates, and news to read, so make us your favorite GH hotspot. According to General Hospital spoilers, Drew Kane's shooting on Tuesday, September 2nd is causing a stir among fans. While the preview earlier that day indicated to 6 possible suspects, after witnessing the cutthroat congressman get shot twice, a fresh fan hypothesis regarding who shot Drew Kane has surfaced. Not the usual suspects. The GH promo video for the week of September 2nd to 5th appeared to indicate 6 probable suspects in Drew's shooting: Willow Tate, Nina Reeves, Portia Robinson, Curtis Ashford, Sonny Corinthos, and Michael Corinthos. Nonetheless, viewers know that any excellent whodunit soap storyline invariably include an unexpected suspect. Furthermore, the murky shooting sequences appear to suggest that none of the above may be the shooter. After all, only Sonny or Michael could handle a gun of that caliber. However, alternative theories appear to be circulating among followers on social media. A skilled shooter the pistol used, together with the shot's aim, appears to indicate that whoever shot Drew was familiar with it. Fans are aware that WSB agent Colette Moreau is corrupted. Hence, could she have shot Drew as a favor to Jens Sidwell? Then, perhaps Jens took matters into his own hands and completed the task himself. Speaking of WSB shottiness, may Jack Brennan be added to the suspect list? It's difficult to see why he'd put his life in danger by murdering Carly Spencer's ex, but one may emerge as the story progresses. Finally, if Jens perceived Drew as a problem and wanted him gone, might his mystery partner be responsible for the congressman's shooting? Without knowing who the man is or what he's up to, his big-name revelation could shed light on why he's the shooter and what motivates him. Who do you think will shoot Drew? Share your ideas. Tune in to the ABC soap and visit this website frequently for the most recent General Hospital updates, spoilers, and news. Britt's unexpected return to Port Charles struck shockwaves across everyone's lives, shattering fragile connections and unsolved scars. For years, people had speculated if Britt would return after fleeing without explanation, and now she was standing in the middle of the Metro Court lobby, serene but with an aura of quiet anxiety that hinted at secrets she wasn't ready to reveal. The word spread quickly, reaching Lulu and Dante before they had a chance to brace for the storm that was about to strike their already tangled lives. Lulu stopped when she first heard Britt's name, her breath catching as memories of heartache, betrayal, and decisions that had permanently changed her family flooded back. Dante, standing immediately behind her, clenched his teeth, suddenly alert. He realized Britt's homecoming was not a coincidence. Nothing in Port Charles has ever happened by coincidence. There was always an agenda, someone working an angle, and Dante didn't believe Britt for a moment. Lulu, on the other hand, felt something different. Shame hidden beneath her fury. She wondered if Britt's reappearance was related to the truth she'd fought so hard to avoid accepting. The conflict between Lulu and Dante erupted almost immediately. He intended to address Britt head-on, demanding to know why she was back and what she was concealing. Lulu, on the other hand, wanted to step gently, fearing that pushing Britt too hard would set off a chain reaction that neither of them could control. The tension between them grew when Dante discovered Britt had been seen near Windmere late at night, a place with far too many dark secrets and convoluted histories. Dante accused Lulu of withholding information, claiming that Britt's ties to Nicholas and the Cassidines were not finished. Lulu snapped out, defending herself and claiming that Dante's skepticism was blinding him to alternative possibilities. The fight exposed deeper fissures in their relationship, which they had attempted to patch but never fully fixed. Meanwhile, Britt was not returning solely for nostalgia or old grudges. She had her own objective, which involved Vaughn, and a secret the two were determined to keep hidden. Vaughn, a charming but mysterious newcomer to Port Charles, had quickly grown close to Jocelyn, and their growing relationship had raised eyebrows across town. No one, not even Carly, suspected how deeply Vaughn was involved in Britt's schemes. Britt had been surreptitiously meeting Vaughn late at night, swapping whispers and documents in unlikely places. Jocelyn, on the other hand, was more than just an innocent bystander. She had gotten herself into a situation from which she could not get out. What began as innocent curiosity about Vaughn's past evolved into a hazardous game when she discovered evidence linking him to Britt's unexpected return. Instead of confronting him, she agreed to protect his secret, for now, but at a cost. Vaughn wanted Jocelyn's silence while Britt worked behind the scenes, but her devotion was already being tested. She was torn between protecting him and her family, knowing that if Carly or Michael found out, the consequences would be cataclysmic. As Britt carefully reintegrated herself into Port Charles society, whispers began to spread. People questioned her intentions, but Britt played it wisely, keeping her movements measured and modest. She reconnected with a few crucial characters, cautiously testing the waters, and each move she made appeared purposeful. She reconnected with former allies, avoided direct confrontations, and presented herself as someone with unfinished business, but only with people who could assist her. Her tranquility frightened people more than her presence. It was as if she knew something that no one else did, something significant enough to change everything. Meanwhile, Dante stepped up his own inquiry. He couldn't shake the notion that Britt's reappearance was part of a greater strategy. He called in favors, combed through records, and followed leads that led him down unexpected pathways. He saw Vaughn's name on a few suspicious documents and began to believe that he wasn't who he claimed to be. Dante urged Lulu to keep away from Vaughn, claiming that anyone connected to Britt could cause trouble. But Lulu, still filled with guilt from the past and determined to prove she could handle things her own way, ignored his cautions and began digging on her own. Lulu's investigating led to a confrontation with Britt. They hadn't spoken for years, and the animosity between them was palpable, intense, and raw. Britt remained calm, almost amused, as Lulu demanded explanations for why she was returning and what she was planning. Britt, with her usual chilly smile, refused to offer her any meaningful information, merely implying that the past was not as settled as Lulu liked to believe. Lulu left the meeting feeling disturbed, more persuaded than ever that Britt's return would reopen old wounds. At the same time, Jocelyn's involvement grew. She and Vaughn were getting closer, but their relationship was strained by the truth they had recently disclosed. But Vaughn didn't tell her everything. He hinted to sums he owed, individuals he couldn't afford to offend, and a strategy that had to work at any cost. Jocelyn wanted to trust him, but she couldn't shake a rising sense of unease. She began confiding in Trina. But even then, she couldn't tell the whole truth without jeopardizing everything. Trina warned her that secrets in Port Charles tended to explode, but Jocelyn believed herself she could manage it, until she couldn't. Vaughn's involvement with Britt got increasingly risky. There were coded messages, unexpected visitors, and a strange account linked to funds no one could find. Britt was planning something major, and Vaughn was her inside man. Jocelyn overheard portions of their chats and deduced that this wasn't just about Vaughn's history, but about a power shift in Port Charles. As Dante moved closer to the truth, the walls began to close in. He traced Vaughn's ties to an offshore account, which led to a series of covert Cassadine transactions. When Dante confronted Vaughn, he denied everything, but he was not convinced. He warned Jocelyn to keep away from him, but she resisted, torn between her feelings and her allegiance to Vaughn. Lulu, meanwhile, began to piece together her own theory, fearing that Britt's return was not just emotional, but also strategic. She began tracking Britt's activities and saw a pattern in the locations she went, the people she spoke with, and the secrets she carefully avoided revealing. When Lulu revealed her results to Dante, it prompted yet another argument. Dante believed Britt was dangerous and needed to be stopped quickly, while Lulu insisted on further proof before taking any action. Britt remained one step ahead, watching the pandemonium develop around her. She seemed to enjoy the tension between Lulu and Dante, the confusion surrounding Jocelyn, and the distrust Vaughn was eliciting. Britt's cool demeanor belied her inner fear. She wasn't telling anyone why she had returned, and it entailed more than old grudges or covert connections. There was a bigger threat coming to Port Charles than anyone had recognized, and Britt was preparing to endure it, no matter who got caught in the crossfire. Everyone's relationships were deteriorating by the time the truth became apparent. Lulu and Dante's confidence in each other was eroding, Jocelyn's heart was entangled in falsehoods, and Vaughn was engaging in a risky double game that could cost him everything. The tension in Port Charles had reached a boiling point, with old rivals emerging, secrets about to be revealed, and alliances moving quicker than anybody could keep track of. And in the midst of it all, Britt remained cool, unshaken, and prepared, because whatever storm was coming, she wasn't just going to confront it. She returned to manage it. It began at the docks, where secrets are traded as freely as goods. Drew had arrived for a meeting concerning a poor deal with the LQ, albeit the specifics were unclear even to those closest to him. He had been cagey lately, his typical charm tempered by a restless edge, as if he sensed disaster was on his heels. The waterfront was peaceful that night, except for the sound of waves lapping against the pier and the distant buzz of a cargo. The silence was broken by a crisp final crack of gunshots. Drew fell, blood pooling beneath him, his phone skittering across the sidewalk, an unsent message still displaying on the screen. By the time the first responders arrived, he was barely aware, his breathing short, and his eyes seeking the darkness for answers. The cops cordoned off the area, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, but the scene revealed little. The other rescuers followed, their breaths visible in the cold air, their determination unwavering despite the growing ache in their muscles. Brennan paced nervously around the base camp, his radio crackling with updates. He'd been through enough rescues to understand that finding someone was only half the battle. The forest did not give up its captives easily, and the worsening weather was a bad sign. He issued orders to prepare for the team's return, ensuring that hot food, dry clothes, and a medical tent were available. The volunteers, exhausted but encouraged by Jason's discovery, rallied to assist. Some set up tarps to protect against the rain, while others brewed coffee and distributed energy bars. The sense of community was palpable, reminding us that even in the face of nature's indifference, human connection can shine through. Jason, meanwhile, struggled to stay awake as Clara and the team made their way out of the gully. His legs felt like lead, and the cold had seeped into his bones, but Clara's calm voice helped him stay grounded. She asked him about everything, his favorite video games, the scout badges he'd earned, and even the stray dog he adopted last summer. It was a distraction, a way to take his mind off the perilous climb and the hunger that gnawed at his stomach. The team moved as one with taut ropes and deliberate steps. Above them, the sky darkened and the first drops of rain fell, slicking the rocks and making every movement more dangerous. Jason's parents waited at the ranger station, worried expressions on their faces. They had driven 3 hours from their small town when they received the call, arriving just as the search began. His mother clutched a photo of Jason from his last scout ceremony, his grin wide and carefree. His father, a quiet man who rarely expressed emotion, kept his gaze fixed on the forest edge, as if waiting for his son to appear. Brennan had spoken briefly with them, his tone reassuring but candid about the challenges ahead. They clung to his words, particularly the fact that Jason had been found alive. But the waiting until he was back in their arms was torture in and of itself. The rescue team was now halfway up the gully, but the rain was more than just a drizzle. It came down in sheets, making the path slippery. Clara called for a brief pause to assess the situation. The team was exhausted, and Jason was fading quickly. She made the decision to build a temporary shelter, using a tarp to create a makeshift roof against the rain. They huddled together, exchanging body heat and passing a thermos of lukewarm tea. Jason sipped gratefully, his hands trembling. Clara checked his vitals and noticed his low body temperature and slow responses. Hypothermia was a real threat, and they couldn't afford to remain stationary for long. Brennan felt his stomach twist as he monitored the situation via radio. The storm was more severe than expected, and the team was running out of daylight. He contacted the ranger station to request a helicopter evacuation, but the wind and rain made it impossible. The only option was to rely on Clara and her team to lead Jason out on foot. Brennan focused his attention on the volunteers, assembling a backup team to meet the rescuers at the gully's edge with supplies and stretchers. He refused to be idle, his years as a ranger teaching him that action was the antidote to fear. Clara decided to move again while in the gully. The rain had not stopped, but Jason's condition was deteriorating. She adjusted the ropes and secured them to a new anchor point before the team resumed their climb. Every step was a battle against the slippery rocks and the wind, which threatened to knock them off balance. Jason, who was too weak to walk alone, was supported by 2 rescuers, their arms locked around him. Clara led the way, her flashlight shining through the dim light and her voice steady as she called out instructions. The team's faith in her was unwavering, forged over hours of arduous effort and collective determination. At the base camp, there was a mixture of hope and anxiety. The volunteers had done everything they could to prepare, but the storm was relentless, and the forest appeared to become wilder with each gust of wind. Brennan stood at the camp's edge, scanning the horizon for signs of the rescue team. The radio crackled with Clara's voice, reporting their slow but steady progress. They were almost at the top of the gully, but the last stretch was the most dangerous, a narrow ledge with a sheer drop on one side. Brennan clenched his jaw and silently urged them on. Jason's parents, now accompanied by other scout families, stood under a tarp, their faces pale but hopeful. The news that Jason was alive had spread, and the camp buzzed with quiet relief, but no one dared to celebrate just yet. The forest was unpredictable, and the storm reminded us of its power. Some of the younger scouts, shaken by the ordeal, clung to their parents, while others assisted the volunteers by carrying supplies and providing words of encouragement. The sense of community provided a lifeline, keeping everyone together while they waited for the rescue team to arrive. The team made it to the gully's final ledge. Clara tested the path, her boots slid slightly on the wet stone. She tightened the ropes, ensuring Jason's safety, and gave the signal to move. To avoid the wind, the team inched along the ledge, pressing their bodies against the rock face. Jason, barely conscious, mumbled something about his dog, and Clara squeezed his hand, promising that he'd be home shortly. Fortunately, the ledge was short, and they were on solid ground within minutes. The team let out a collective breath, relieved but exhausted. The last push to base camp was a blur. The rain had subsided slightly, but the forest remained a maze of mud and roots. Clara carried Jason on her back for the final half-mile, her strength boosted by adrenaline. The other rescuers surrounded her, their flashlights bobbing in the dark. When they broke through the trees and saw the camp's glow, the volunteers cheered. Jason's parents ran forward, tears streaming down their cheeks as they hugged their son. Clara stepped back, her job complete, her body aching but her heart full. Brennan approached the team, his tough exterior cracking as he patted Clara on the shoulder. Volunteers swarmed around, offering blankets, hot drinks, and expressions of gratitude. Jason was whisked to the medical tent, where a paramedic examined him for hypothermia and dehydration. He was frail but steady, his ordeal leaving him shaken but alive. The camp settled into a quiet rhythm, the storm still raging, but the worst of the crisis had passed. Brennan took a moment to himself, staring out at the forest that had almost killed one of his scouts. He knew they'd been lucky this time. As the night progressed, the volunteers began to disperse, their tasks completed but their stories taking shape. Jason's rescue would be discussed for years, demonstrating the power of teamwork and a stubborn refusal to give up. For Jason, the forest would always be a source of wonder and caution, a reminder of how quickly adventure could turn dangerous. And Brennan, Clara, and the countless others who had braved the storm would remember that day as a hard-fought victory over the wild.